Thanks, Pastor Mike. That was awesome. I'm Pastor Blake. I'm excited to share my testimony on the power of the Holy Spirit and how it can really transform your life. I grew up in a Lutheran church, also grew up in a Baptist church, so there weren't too many series on the power of the Holy Spirit. So I never really grew up understanding who the Holy Spirit was. I also grew up a very, very sick child. Maybe some of you can relate to that. You grew up always sick. Maybe a relative or a friend, or maybe you have a child that always seems to be sick. That was my case. The flu season was dedicated to me. I got the flu every single year. The common cold was about as common as me waking up every single day. And sometimes it would flare up into something more, mono, strep, bronchitis. I would have a cough from October all the way through March. So I was just a sick kid. As a kid, you really didn't understand it. You kind of just lived. You still kind of did your thing. But as I got older, it became annoying. I was a student athlete all the way through college, and that made it really, really difficult being away from home and having to perform and play sports and do things like that. So it was tough. It was a real challenge in my life. Being a student athlete, being away from home, I was often on planes, and you know how planes are. The recycled air. I could board a plane feeling great. As soon as I got off, all that recycled air, what anybody had on that plane, it was coming straight to me. I would deboard that plane feeling awful, and it would last for days. So that's kind of how it was. When I graduated college and sports was over, it was a relief. It was a relief because I just wanted to stop. I equated health with being inactive, with sitting on the couch doing nothing. That's how I could stay the most healthy. So I got a job in the corporate world, and when I got off weeknights and weekends, I spent at home. I didn't want to fellowship. I didn't want to go to birthday parties. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to try to stay as healthy as possible. That didn't happen. I continued to stay sick in my 20s. I was now married. And at age 28, I was so fed up with it. I went to the doctor here in Arizona. And I just said, look, test me for anything and everything. There's got to be something wrong. Valley fever. I've got to have some type of immune deficiency going on because I'm always sick. I'm never feeling well. And the doctor said, okay. Did all the tests, blood work, you name it. Came back, nothing. It was clean. So which was kind of discouraging. So I asked the doctor, like, what do I do? Like, this shouldn't be how life is, if you will. And he just said, look, you're not the only person that this has happened to. It could quite possibly be just your draw in life. There's a lot of people who just catch sickness more often than others. Like, how discouraging was that? No diagnosis, no treatment, nothing that I could take. I took supplements. I know all of them in the book: echinacea, vitamin C, D, E, F, G, the whole alphabet, you name it. I had a pill case that I carried in a suitcase. But I just kept trucking along. So that was at age 28. Age 30, I gave up. I was like, God, there has to be something more. It can't be like this the rest of my life. And so at age 30, I began to press into the Lord. I began to seek Jesus. The decade of my 20s, I was a cultural Christian. I desired the world and I desired God, if that's possible. As I began to seek the Lord at age 30, it was a grind pressing into that relationship, trying to figure it out. And for 3 years, God destroyed and wrecked the idols I had in my life. And there was quite a few. And at age 33, when I had given up on all the idols, God had crushed them, He began to show me and give me vision. And that vision, this is 10 years ago at age 33, was ministry and a lot of it. I was working in the corporate world. He began to show me ministry, hard work, fellowship, doing all these things. And I said, God, wait a minute. We're in a good spot now. I'm feeling pretty good. How about we just stay there, not everything that you're showing me right now? Because our conversations were pretty clear. Our conversations were pretty good. I could hear his voice. And he said, no, I've got purpose for you. You've been asking for purpose. You've been seeking me for the last 3 years. Here you go. This is what your purpose and what your life looks like. And I said, God, you know me. You know my health. You know my situation. I can't do what you're showing me, and I won't. And he looked at me and he said, what do you need? And I'm sobbing, and this is late at night. In those 3 years, my conversations with God were late at night. My wife, my kids would be in bed. It would be late at night when I'm pouring out, when I'm seeking him. And again, I said, God, I can't, and I won't. I can't do this. You know I can't. He said, what do you need? And I said, God, I need health. You know I need health. And at that moment, I felt a rushing of the Holy Spirit. I was on the couch. He closed my eyes. I was frozen. I began to tremble with fear. I was afraid. I'd never felt anything like that before in my life. I was trying to move. I was trying to open my eyes, and I couldn't. I couldn't tell you how long it lasted. I just know I was frozen with fear, and the rushing continued. It just felt like a wave of air coming over me, and it didn't stop. It just continued, and it continued, and it continued. The day after that, my life changed. I began serving the Lord. He began to reveal and unpack all the ministry that he had shown me. And my days and my evenings and my weekends began to look entirely different. And I remember a year after that, at age 34, I looked at my wife and I said, my goodness, I can't believe what this last year has been like. And I haven't gotten sick once. And she's like, yeah, you're right. So I continued, and God has given me health. God has given me healing. And here's my encouragement for you today, because I know when it comes to the gifts of the Holy Spirit, health and healing can get weird. But in the Bible, it's all throughout the Bible, isn't it? Every instance of healing in the Bible brought about change. When Jesus and the disciples were at Peter's house, his mother-in-law was down with a fever. Jesus healed her. What did she do? She immediately got up and began to serve. And the other thing with health and healing is you should look to God first. But our tendency is this: if we have a headache, what do? We pop an ibuprofen. God says, come to me first, and health and healing should bring about change in your life. Has my health been perfect ever since that moment? No. I can remember about 5 or 6 years ago, I had a headache and I was sitting at home, but I understood it differently. So I went to God. I said, God, what's going on? I've got a headache. And he said, you never pray with your wife. I said, you're right, you got me. He said, ask her to pray for you. She was sitting next to me. I said, Lindsay, I've got a headache. Will you pray for me? And she did. She didn't pray for healing. She didn't pray for health. She just prayed over me as her husband. Guess what? Headache. Completely gone. Crazy thing is, last night, about 1 a.m., I woke up and kind of felt a little headache. And I was like, what's this? And it intensified to the point where I was in tons of pain. And I knew it was Satan, because I knew that we were all sharing our testimonies today for the power of the Holy Spirit. I knew it was him. But it wouldn't go away, and it was getting worse and worse and worse. The worst headache I've ever had in my entire life. And I went to Jesus. I said, Jesus, what do I do? And I'm on my knees in the bedroom, and I'm just trying to sit there. I'm trying to be quiet. I said, Jesus, what do I do? Guess who woke up? My wife. And there's instances in the Bible where God heals supernaturally, and there's instances where he uses medicine. She woke up. She said, what's going on? I said, I've got a headache, and I've never felt this pain before. And I had already taken some Advil and all that kind of medicine, and my wife suggested something else. And sure enough, 15 minutes later, I was feeling great. So in both instances, God used my wife to cover me with prayer and medicine for healing. So my encouragement for you is a few things. One, your relationship with Jesus. The disciples at Pentecost received the Holy Spirit after spending 3 years with Jesus. I had to spend 3 years with Jesus grinding out my relationship with him before I received the baptism of the Holy Spirit. So you've got to go to Jesus first. And when it comes to health and healing, go to God. You go to God first. Go to him first. And if you're desiring that healing or health, it should also bring about change in your life, a change that would allow you to serve him wholeheartedly. So that's my testimony. I hope it blesses and encourages some of you at this time.